Good evening. Welcome to the Town Council meeting for May 21st. Let's stand to salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. I have a few announcements. I just want to remind everybody that we have an open house at the community center on Wednesday, May 30th from 5 to 8. And at 7 o'clock, we'll be thanking all the boards and commissions from Narragansett. So it's a recognition of their volunteerism. So I hope you'll join us. There's been some renovations at the community center, so please join us. Also, there's flyers in the back on June 27th is a Wednesday. We are going to have Ripta here, and they're going to be talking about improving ridership for the residents in the town of Narragansett. So we'd like you to come and listen to their presentation, and they too will give question and answer part of their program. So that will be right here from 6 to 7:30 on June 27th. And we're going to move on to the approval of the minutes. April 2nd, 2018. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the April 2nd minutes.
Do I have a second? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
4-0, motion passes. April 10th, 2018. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the April 10th special meeting minutes.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Abstain.
3 passes, 1 abstention. Okay, thank you. April 16th, 2018.
So move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
4-0, motion passes. Next on the agenda, we have showcases tonight. The showcases are presentations. There won't be a give and take of information. They will be presenting to the public and to the council tonight. So we have 3 presentations. We're going to do about 10 or 15 minutes. And the first group that's going to come up to share their presentation is Solarize Rhode Island. So I welcome them to the podium.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for having us. For those of you who don't remember me, I'm Melinda Howard, and I had the pleasure of working in Narragansett.
Melinda, can you talk into the mic a little bit? You could bend it like that, yeah.
Okay, I can do that. I had the pleasure of working in Narragansett on the Rhode Island Energy Challenge, and Narragansett did meet the challenge and become a Rhode Island Energy Champion. We also work on the Solarize campaign, and I would like to introduce Shauna Beelan, the Solarize Program Manager for the state of Rhode Island.
Thank you.
Thanks, Melinda. Much shorter mic for me. Thank you so much for having me tonight. My name is Shauna Beeland. I'm the Program Manager for the Solarize Rhode Island program. I'm going to just talk briefly about the Solarize program, and then I'll be able to answer any questions that you might have. The Solarize Rhode Island program is designed to increase education and adoption of solar PV. This is the 5th year of the program. In front of you, you have some general program metrics about the results of the program that we've run in the previous 16 municipalities that we've partnered with on this campaign. Some of those municipalities that we've partnered with include Jamestown. Jamestown is actually running the campaign right now. We're going to be there in town over the summer. Some of the other neighboring communities to Narragansett that have run the campaign include South Kingstown and Charlestown, and we've been very successful in both of those communities as well. So what is Solarize? It's a program, like I said, designed to increase education and adoption of solar PV, but the way that we do that is through 4 time-tested now mechanisms. The first is we competitively select an installer on behalf of the program and on behalf of the town. The program is a limited time only program, so this will last until the end of October of this year. The Solarize installer will bid tiered pricing, and the way the tiered pricing works is the more people who sign up, the lower the price is for everybody who signs a contract to go solar. And the 4th component of a Solarize program is that it's a grassroots campaign. It's not the state coming into the community and saying, this is what you should do. We work with your neighbors, the municipal partners, volunteers in the community, people who have already gone solar in the town, to work with us on creating buzz and education about solar. So there's two trends that we've noticed specifically to Narragansett. There's residents and businesses here that have reached out to us, and by us, I mean the program administrators for the program, which include my office, the Office of Energy Resources, the Renewable Energy Fund at Commerce, Rhode Island, and Smart Power, our nonprofit marketing partner. And Melinda's from Smart Power, and Karen Stewart as well are from Smart Power as well. So the trends that we've noticed is that people have actually reached out to us asking for a campaign to be run here in Narragansett, which has been really exciting. And the number of installs in town has increased. There were 10 installations in 2015. In 2016, there were 28 solar installations. And in 2017, there were 37 solar installations. So we're seeing this increasing trend to, as solar becomes more prevalent across the state, and our education activities are working. So running a program like this in Narragansett will help the program administrators actually save on time to travel because we're in neighboring Jamestown. So we'll be able to realize some, so as a side benefit for us, we'll be able to save on some drive time. And who doesn't love spending the summer in Narragansett? Personally, I would love to run a campaign here. I have many childhood memories of running of the beaches and renting a house on the water, so I look forward to spending a lot of time here. So what would the town's commitment be for this program? It's approximately 1.5 hours, so 1.5 hours of Mike DeLuca's time, which he's very much well aware of. And some of the benefits of partnering include marketing resources that we're able to provide utilizing Smart Power, and the experience of a program that's been successful for the past 5 years. So during that time, we've educated 3,515 residents and businesses about solar. We've had over 690 contracts signed, and signed about 4.7 megawatts of renewable energy, mostly solar. And the state's goal for renewable energy is 1,000 megawatts by 2020. So while 4.7 megawatts might seem like a drop in the bucket towards that goal, every kilowatt counts. So all of the program partners think that Narragansett is the perfect community for our next town that we're partnering with for Solarize, and tonight we hope that you agree. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have about the campaign, our past experience working with municipalities.
So, Shauna, so people have an opportunity if they want to get involved in solar. It's just, is it similar as the last campaign? You just get the signups and then people work through the community development if they would like to be a part of that program?
That's right. It's a little added twist, though, that we do go out to bid for one installer for the program. So that installer will be part of the program team, and we'll be having weekly meetings with the installer, and we'll be designing a marketing campaign with that installer and implementing it over the course of the summer and the fall.
Any questions?
Yeah, how do you choose which installer? How do you choose the installer?
Sure. So we've gone out to bid for the past 15 communities that we've been in. The request for application is posted on the Office of Energy Resources website, and we have an email list of over 300 installation companies, regional, national, and local installers here in Rhode Island, and we get bids from them. They bid tiered pricing, like I mentioned, so price is one of the components and one of the scoring criteria. We'll work with Mike and two other people that he designates among the town, and the town has 3 votes, and the program administrators each have 1. So Smart Power has 1, OER has 1, and the Renewable Energy Fund has 1. All of those scores are compiled, and then we interview the top 3, and then we decide, based on the interviews, who the installer is for the town.
Okay. So you can't use your own installer?
You certainly can. This isn't a monopoly.
Right.
You are certainly open to soliciting, or not soliciting, getting other bids from other companies. The reason that you might choose the Solarize installer is because the tiered pricing that they bid is lower
Right.
due to the economies of scale.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Any other questions?
Nope.
So what do you need from us tonight? I mean, we don't have a resolution, we don't have,
Sure.
it sounds like Mike is willing to work. Can I be involved in that if I wanted to? 'Cause I know
Absolutely.
I enjoyed so much the last time when we did the Energy Champion. So could that be a possibility?
Yeah, you're a
You
sun
guys-
goddess.
Yeah,
Why not?
so I mean, I'd like to also just be involved in that. So
Sure.
it's only an hour and a half a week.
That's about right, yep.
Yeah, so great. Does that sound like, you guys are okay with that? Okay, that
Great.
sounds good. Mike, I'll be working with you on the Solarize program. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for
All right,
listening to me.
look forward to it. I think it's a great initiative.
I
Thank you.
look forward to working with you all. Thank you.
All right, moving on, we have the Conservation Commission. They have a proposal for a plastic bags ordinance, so they're going to come up, and we welcome them. I know that they wanted to share their information, so, Mike?
Good evening. Mike Lepiski, Chairman of the Conservation Commission, and Sarah, who is a member of the commission, will be giving a presentation on a proposed ban for plastic bags in the town of Narragansett.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council, for your time. So our plan tonight is just to fill you in on what we've been working on for the past few months on the Conservation Commission with our plan for a single-use plastic bag ban ordinance. So why would we ban plastic bags in Narragansett? The first reason is the risk that they pose to wildlife. Not only are they an eyesore, they can actually cause death and other detriments to wildlife that we really rely on to bring in lots of tourism. Everyone loves to see these attractive animals when they come to Narragansett. Additionally, microplastics can be really detrimental to human health. The plastic bags, when they go into the ecosystem, they don't ever go away. They never biodegrade. They break down into smaller and smaller pieces of plastic, and these are called microplastics, and these are ingested by wildlife in the marine ecosystem. This includes lots of animals that we rely on for aquaculture, including oysters. And then we ingest those microplastics. They're toxic and persistent, and we don't yet know how detrimental these will be to human health. Lots of new studies are still coming out about that. They're also expensive to clean up. These plastic bags take like 2 to 5 cents to produce and take about 17 cents to clean up, and that cost is borne on the taxpayer. We have an idea of who we would propose that this single-use plastic bag ban would affect. That would be Narragansett town facilities, commercial establishments, and restaurants. Basically anyone who is handing out these single-use plastic bags. If we were to pass a plastic bag ban ordinance, we would be in very good company in the state and in the region. There have been many, many states many towns rather, that have passed these sorts of ordinances, and many of them have been in Rhode Island. Barrington was the first in 2014, and Barrington did this hand in hand with businesses, which is our plan. We don't want to cause any economic hardship on businesses. I think many businesses, especially larger chains, expect these sorts of changes throughout New England and are prepared for it. We would also be with the rest of Aquidneck Island, Middletown, Jamestown, Newport, and Boston. The whole city of Boston is under a plastic bag ban ordinance, as well as at least 50 communities in Massachusetts. South Kingstown is currently in the phase of business outreach of a plastic bag ordinance, so they have gotten permission from their town council to go forward with workshops, surveys, that sort of thing, to make sure that, again, we're doing this hand in hand with the business owners that will be affected by this bag ban ordinance. So what we've done so far is a lot of background research. You have a report in front of you that was prepared by a graduate URI class that we worked with I think that the report outlines the detriments to the marine environment, a history of bag bans in New England, the economics of a single use, the realities of the economic hardships of the single-use bag ban, policy considerations and recommendations, and some recommendations for public outreach, again, which will be very, very important to us. We've also made a list of all of the Narragansett businesses that might be affected by this bag ban, and our next step would be to start outreach to those businesses. We've also drafted an ordinance that we plan to, move forward with and continue to edit. It's sort of a living document, and I'll actually pass it over to Brian Wagner to talk a little bit about that.
Sarah, can I just ask a question about the list of businesses in Narragansett? When you say outreach, what would be your plan to outreach and do with those businesses? What would you be looking for from the businesses?
So we would probably do some surveying and then try to incorporate some workshops to where we would bring businesses in and have conversations with them about what this would mean for their businesses, make sure that they have all of the information before we move forward.
Okay, so it's sort of a study period to see how they would react to this ban. Okay.
And make sure that they have everything they need to move forward without accruing any citations if we were to pass a plastic bag ban.
Oh, okay, great, thank you. Brian?
Good evening. My name is Brian Wagner. I'm on the Conservation Commission with Sarah. I think Sarah addressed the bulk of everything, but there were a couple of points that I wanted to make. First of all, if you haven't taken the opportunity to read the work that was done by URI, please do. It was a very well done product. Two, I know you've received a copy of an ordinance that we drafted, and we drafted that to give you an idea of what a final product would look like, but please do not look at it as a final non-negotiable product. That was never our intent, and it has always been our intent, as Sarah said, to engage in public outreach, to get businesses and individuals involved. We know that's important. The report that URI generated said that other communities said that that was a critically important part of the process. However, both the town manager and the town planner advised us that before going to the public, that we bring this before the council so that the council knew what was going on, was fully informed of what we were looking to do. So all we're really looking for at this point in time is the council's blessing, so to speak, to proceed with this public outreach, and we'd be more than glad to report back to the council with the types of responses that we get from the community. We would ask that the council not look at this ordinance with any sort of preconceived assumptions about what people might think about. Let us go out there and actually take the pulse and see what people think about this. And I think from the terms of business impact, what we'll find is a lot of businesses out there are anticipating this sort of thing, and many are in fact prepared to do this. Another aspect, as Sarah mentioned, the town of South Kingstown has been batting around the same idea. So we would propose to reach out to the town of South Kingstown. I know that many of our economic aspects are very closely tied in geography. So it would seem to make sense if the two towns were on the same playing field, so to speak, when it came to enacting something like this, so that there was consistency between the towns. So that would also be part of the process.
So you really need authorization from the council to seek out and talk to the businesses about this initiative, give them information, communicate with them, and then you would come back to us to say, the town of Narragansett, all the people, not only the residents, but the businesses felt great about it, they hated it, and you'd come back either way and give us sort of a barometer of where we were with this.
We would hope to incorporate the input we get into edits to the draft that you've already seen, and we would be prepared to come back and talk about those changes and to bring you up to speed on what the feedback that we got when we reached out to the public.
I haven't had a chance to read the whole report, but it looks good, and I'm happy to read it, and I support it. I think, the study phase, for me, is great at this point, so I'm in favor of at least testing the waters to see what the businesses and surrounding people in the community think, and so it's just the beginning, so I can certainly authorize me for right now. I don't know how my colleagues feel.
Yeah, I don't know if they have to be, I guess it's our commission, so we are authorizing them. To me, it doesn't really, I think, supporting first of all, I'm 100% in support of it. In fact, I'm 100% in support of banning single-use plastic items, period. So it doesn't necessarily just be, for me, it's not just bags, but I think you should go forth with, everything you can possibly gather in terms of information and bring it forward, so.
Yeah, Patrick, I take it under advisement at this point. Thank you for your presentation. And
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. So because they gave us information, I just don't want to leave them sort of not knowing what they're going to do. So, so I think Mike and I said, sounds great. I'm just trying to figure out, should they continue with
Well, you said there was
studying?
no vote.
There's no vote, so I'm just asking, should they come back? Should they, no? Okay, so you
Yeah,
just,
I mean, I don't want to belabor it, but I don't know if we have to authorize them to do anything
Right, so
except
they
continue
could-
their good work and come forth
Okay.
with more detail, right?
fair enough. All right, thank you. Okay, just clarifying that. Next, we have the update on the bike path, and I'm going to, Jeff, or is it Jim? Jeff, okay, great. So Jeff's going to come up and he's going to give us an update on the bike path in Narragansett.
Thank
So
you.
what-
As you know, Phase 4A of the bike path is roughly about 1,700 feet. It will begin at the terminus of the existing path on Mumford Road. It will proceed along the edge of the school property, make a right-hand turn at the edge of the soccer practice field, and ultimately end up at the community center parking lot. The plans and specs are about 90% complete. We filed them with CRMC. CRMC is doing a coordinated review on the part of themselves and Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management. And we are at the end of the 30-day public comment period this week. In fact, the public comment period closes this Thursday. There are two issues that have come up that will be impacting the timetable of the path. The first is that when we did the survey work, the due diligence discovered an easement dating from 1958 from the town to National Grid that impacts a little bit more than a third of the path. The easement was for a future transmission line that Grid may need someday. Even though they haven't used the easement since 1958, they are so far refusing to relinquish their right to it. We continue to pressure them as much as we can, but it's National Grid, and we really don't have any type of a hammer to hold over them. It's still within their internal review process. That's the best I can get out of them. For what it's worth, we filed for relief with National Grid more than 4 months ago. We're still waiting for their response. The other issue that came up last week when the State Historic Preservation Commission filed a request with CRMC to require an archaeological survey. They're citing the location of the path in relation to Pettaquamsket Cove as being an area potentially rich with cultural resources. If CRMC agrees and requires a cultural resource archaeological survey, the path will not get built this year. That will be additional time and money that we did not plan on. We won't know that until after the public comment period is closed and CRMC weighs the request from the state and gives it all as relevant due. Our counter argument to that is that the path is on previously disturbed land. The route that the council selected for the bike path was disturbed when the elementary school was built. Intuitively, I would think the option of finding cultural resources there is probably slim to none, but that's an argument that Coastal will take up with the state, and then they'll render a decision on that hopefully within the next few weeks. So that's where we stand. We were making good headway until that, but we're still plugging away at it.
I mean, are you optimistic? I mean, those two, they're obviously hurdles. I mean, the easement and the archaeological survey. I mean,
We'll get through them. The question is whether we will get through them in
them this
time to
year.
build the path this summer or whether we'll be building it next year. We really don't want to build the path during the school year. It's just not. I mean, if I was a school kid, I'd love to sit and look out the window at the construction equipment all day, but I don't think we can fairly do that to the school. So we either build it this summer or we build it next summer. We do have a little bit of time remaining on the grant. I have talked to DEM about that. It's not a problem from the grant funding standpoint if we build it next year instead of this year. So that issue is fine. DEM is pushing National Grid hard on this one as well. So we do have quote unquote friends in high places trying to take up our case.
Okay, so let's,
Refresh my memory, how long from the beginning of construction to the end? Like, if it was, whenever it started?
Well, it's only 1,700 feet of path, so we anticipated that the construction work could be done in one summer season. If we started literally the week that school ended, we'd be doing the final restoration when school began.
Okay.
It's a pretty compressed timetable, but it's also not rocket science. It's 1,700 feet of a 12-foot wide bike path.
Right.
And it's a pretty easy route. There's not a lot of grade changes. We're not crossing any brooks. There's no structures. There's no bridges
Okay.
or anything. It's just all grade work, basically.
so we're going to remain optimistic because it
Always.
seems like we can get
Always.
through that. So I appreciate that. Anything
Yep.
else?
Jeff, I had a quick question about the easement. Does that run perpendicular, or does it run along the path?
It runs parallel to Riverside Drive.
Right.
So it's for that first stretch that comes in along Riverside Drive
Right.
before we make the bend to run along the edge of the soccer field.
You can't kind of bypass or go on the town property? And
Well, we can, but it moves it closer to the school, and the school has asked that we not do that. We already have to relocate some playground
Right.
equipment to build the path where it's proposed. Putting it any closer to the school,
Right.
they believe compromises security, and I can't argue with them on that one.
All right.
Thank you for the update. We're going to move on to open forum. If anybody's wishing to speak, come on up. Just state your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Deb Kopek. I live at 963 Point Judith Road. And I just wanted to add my support to the Solarize RI concept. I actually have solar panels on my house. It's a great way to save money, to be honest with you, but it's also a wonderful way to support the environment. So I wanted to make that point. And I would also volunteer to work with the group if you need me to. I'd be happy to do that. So the other thing I wanted to mention, this was a great night for me to be here because I am strongly in favor of environmental causes, and so the plastic bags issue is also important to me. And I just wanted to mention that I live on Point Judith Road, and I spend a lot of time cleaning up the area around where I live, not just my property, but other properties that are generally vacant. And I spend a lot of time cleaning up plastic bags, and I would be delighted not to have to do that. They're disgusting, they're wet, they're gross, and they probably, foster mosquitoes and every other thing. So the fewer the plastic bags, the better as far as I'm concerned. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak at open forum? Stanley, is that a hand up? Come on up. I wasn't sure.
I asked my grandmother why she left Poland, left her families, left her friends, never to go back there again. And what I heard was it was a very bad place. My aunt did the talking because she only talked Polish, and when the aunt kind of pressed her for the details, my grandmother stopped smiling, and I stopped inquiring at that point. But now the library provided Mary with the importance of Oskar Schindler. And Mary put it on my desk, and I accidentally started reading it. Now I see probably what was happening in Poland. It was not justice for all. Some people were demonized, and it kind of made me think a little bit about is history repeating itself here in Narragansett, where we constantly think of the students and the landlords being bad people. Even I refused to be called a landlord. I always said Mary was a landlord. She does the leasing, so therefore she's the landlord. I'm just a maintenance guy. I want to say I'm sorry to Mary for that, because that was just authorizing people to not like landlords, and I was agreeing with that. We cannot ignore the unjust actions of demonization. In Narragansett, we use unequal property taxation to call out the supposedly bad persons. Last year, a member of Narragansett Pier Residents Association member stood at this very podium. He stood right here, and he says, we must rid the town of rentals. I heard him. It was in the paper also. Schindler did his best. He did his best, but a superior organization called the shots for unequal treatment. I think we need to recognize this here in Narragansett, and we need to ask for government action not to follow a protocol of giving somebody a break. We shall all be treated equally at all times, especially by our leaders here. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard?
Yeah, Richard Vangermish, Osceola Avenue. I would like, I'm not much for plastic bags either, but the world has changed as far as getting newspapers. And I'll tell you, that is an important thing. It's important that we have newspapers, but unless we're going to figure out some sort of way that paper is going to be immune to water, maybe there's a possibility that this can come up. This is going to run havoc with people who get newspapers delivered to their house. And possibly one out of every 2 or 3 times it's wet. And, you know, a soggy newspaper isn't much. So our times have changed. At one time, the delivery person put it either illegally in the mailbox or you had a separate box. But today's world, it's thrown out of a car, the newspaper. And so one has to think that there is a problem with getting rid of plastic bags in terms of delivering newspapers.
Thank you, Richard. Anybody? Tom? Oh, go ahead.
This will be very quick. Sarah Wigington, 8 Crest Avenue. I just wanted to address that our proposed ban would not include newspaper bags.
Thank you. Tom?
Good evening. I'm Tom Warren. I live on Jake's Way in Narragansett, and I rise to support the single-use ban on plastic bags. I think that one of the things that was missing, and I know Mike does a great job, I applaud his commission, this is actually a pro-business move. When you think about the 3 biggest businesses in town, 2 of them would be the tourism industry, and the second one would be the fishing industry, the commercial fishing industry. So if you eliminate these bags, these businesses will not be affected. In fact, it'll enhance their operations. So I think it's something that we should consider as a positive business move. The smaller businesses, like they said, they're expecting this to come anyways. This is not something that's going to be a surprise to them. A store like Stop and Shop is in 7 of these communities, like Barrington, Newport, Middletown, all on the bay. Jamestown, Block Island, neighboring towns like us, they all have the same concerns. So I support this program, and I wish that the town council would take this seriously and move forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Anybody else wishing to speak? John? I have a feeling you're going to speak on plastic bags.
No, I'm not going to talk about the plastic bags now.
Okay. Name and address.
Unless you have about 2 or 3 days. I just want to say...
Can you state your name and your address for the record?
I just want to say that...
John, state your name and address for the record.
John DePani.
Address.
Okay.
Your address, John.
3 Southern View Drive.
Thank you.
Narragansett.
Good.
I just want to say that I want to thank you for putting together the proclamation for Arbor Day for the town of Narragansett, but also for the middle school, which Steve from Public Works and Bruce and myself worked closely together to put a tree planting down by the, what's that, Munson Road?
Mumford Road by
Right.
the tennis courts.
Where I've been more or less trying to get with Steve to have the right trees planted, which we did. So I approached the principal at the middle school, and I said, we'd like to do the program. So she said, all right, I'll have the 7th grade class. I said, fine. What do you got, about 20 kids? She said, no, how about 75 or 80? Well, I've planted trees at many schools, but I've never had this. But anyway, they had to walk all the way down to the tree planting, and we had one heck of a time. Phil will tell you. He took the pictures. He couldn't believe it himself. The kids could not wait to put shovels in their hands, to fill the hole, watch how we did it. We gave them paper, literature, and they were so overwhelmed. Because it was during the school day, I know a lot of the administration is working, but we had a good amount of people there. But what I also wanted to say is that next year, as you know, I'm with the Rhode Island Tree Council, and John Campanini is a very good friend of mine, and we'd like to put together a Arbor Day planting in the town and make it a big celebration. We did one for Bristol and Warren. We had over 200 people in attendance in each one, and they did a little hoopla. So after the first year, I'd like to put together with the community development people and also the Public Works, and we'll get it a big one next year. But thanks again.
And thank you for all your work from the Middlebridge School to the Sprague over there where you helped with the tree. Thank you.
I just want to say, Mike Lipinski was there. He read the proclamation on that day. You read the proclamation on the town's planting. So, but thank you again.
Thank you. We're going to move on to, I try to get involved. Thank you, Patrick. Public hearing. A motion to schedule a public hearing for review of a text revision of Section 18.3, requirements of the zoning ordinance of the town of Narragansett. We have a date of July 16th. Do I have a motion to schedule?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion about the scheduling? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
4-0, scheduled for the 16th of July. Moving on to the consent agenda, do I have any of the council members that would like to pull anything on the consent? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
4-0, motion passes for the consent agenda. We're going to move on to new business. Number 11, a motion to introduce, read, pass, and accept as a first reading an ordinance of the Town of Narragansett providing that Chapter 1037 and Chapter 1040 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Narragansett, Rhode Island, be amended by the enactment of the amendments to the budget for the Town of Narragansett fiscal year beginning the first day of July AD 2017 and ending the 30th day of June AD 2018. Do I have a motion to introduce, read, and pass?
So moved.
A second for discussion?
Second.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to move to talk about the budget. Laura, who's going to come up? Laura? Oh, Jim, sorry. The town manager is going to review the budget.
But this is just the,
Current.
this is the contingency transfers, right?
So who's going to review this?
Laura, maybe she can.
Yeah, maybe you can
just
come
to-
up and just walk us
Come
through
on
that.
down.
We have a motion for the budget, but this is for the existing budget now, correct?
Correct. This is an amendment to the existing budget that we're in, and it's basically a housekeeping ordinance to match the appropriations for the expenditures that the council approved during the year, and it's also to change the accounting for the revaluation out of the capital projects into the general fund. So it's just basic bookkeeping on the current ordinance.
Thank you.
And it's mostly use of contingency, correct?
Yes, it's all contingency except for the reval money going back to capital, from capital.
Thank you, Laura. Any discussion on that? Anybody from the public? All those in favor?
Aye.
4-0, motion passes. 12, a motion to introduce, read, pass, and accept as a first reading the appropriation ordinance for the 2018-19 fiscal year. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Anybody from the public? Nobody? Oh, Stanley, come on up. Thank you.
I noticed a contingency issues. Is it possible that we let go of contingencies and let them be covered by the undesignated fund balances? So any departments, any and all departments that have contingencies in them, let's not have the contingencies. Let that be fulfilled by the undesignated fund balance. Let that be the needed funds sometime when it just doesn't match for the New Year's budgets. That's number one. Number two, I've always had difficulty with special appropriations. All the people requesting monies really do deserve it. All that they do is so wonderful for the community. However, for politicians to go and choose the charity of their choice, or their choices, and burden the taxpayer, the poor families, if you will, burden with the taxpayers, I don't think that's proper. If anything, you could put it on the website, and I suggested that last time. Put on the website that this is a very good charity that should be donated to by individuals. But I don't believe that you should be making a choice on who to give money to, and then cause the taxpayer to have to pay. Then the final thing I noted in the newspaper was a $10,000 expenditure for senior activities. What happens with, I'm just afraid we send $10,000 this year, next year's $50,000, the following year's $100,000. You know, I love the seniors. I guess I'm a senior. However, most of the seniors I see run around in a Lincoln SUV or whatever. I'm not so sure they need monies to exist here in Narragansett. And in fact, I would suggest that they should volunteer. Hopefully, they could volunteer to help do something in town, for the town, which might help reduce the budget somewhat for the poor families in town. Let them volunteer, become engaged in some activity. Maybe they want to put the books back on the shelf in the library. Maybe they want to go to the meals somewhere and dish out meals, schools, whatever. I want to ask them, they can be engaged in a community and save money rather than spend money in order to engage in a community. And I don't know if they want to spend the money, as long as it's not somebody else's money.
Thank you, Stanley.
Thank you very much.
We had days of workshops, and we didn't have a line item for the senior activities of the center, so we added it to the community center. There was full support for that, and we will continue to try to support the seniors in the town of Narragansett. So, Jim, are you going to review, recap the budget before we have anything else to say on the budget? Are you going to do that when we get to that item?
I can if you'd like.
Yeah, I would definitely. Do you guys want to, just for the public? No, I'm just saying, I just want to make sure we do that. Okay. All right, just checking. Any other questions about the budget?
So is Jim talking? Wait.
Yeah. Are you ready to do that, Jim? I don't want to put you on the spot, or I can go through it. It's up to you. No, we're still
No, we
talking.
haven't voted. Yeah.
Yeah, because I want to talk about Clark Road.
Yeah,
So,
Madam President, I can do the highlights if you'd like.
yeah, I know. We're on number 12, right, on the budget,
Yeah, that's the one.
correct?
Yes, you're
Yes.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about the budget. I didn't know if you wanted to recap, correct me if I'm wrong.
The
number 12?
operating budget.
The
yeah.
operating budget, no?
Yep. So, agenda item number 12 is a recap of the budget. I just want to bring to your attention, there's a misprint. If you go to the, I guess it would be the third page, which says total general fund revenue should be 51 million, not 59. I was corrected by finance director on that, so. So just as a recap, the general property taxes, the current year collections are approximately $51,269,000. I'll just go over the highlights with you. The interfund revenues were $1 million, 1,491. Miscellaneous receipts were 1.5 million. Parks and Rec receipts were $174,000, and total other funding sources were $1.6 million. I have some other notes here if you want me to go over. Let me just get my bearings here. So the tax revenue went up 2.6% or $1.3 million. The total townwide budget went up 3.1% or $1.9 million. The town and school and state aid combined budget is $64 million. The town budget with the general fund went up 2.1% or $1.2 million. The total general fund budget was $33.3 million. The tax rate, as a revised estimate for the residents, is $10.03, and the commercial tax rate would be $14.04. Motor vehicle rate $16.46. So the tax increase on a medium home of $408,000 would be up 9% or $343, which is consistent with the townwide increase in the assessment of 10%. If we look at the capital projects, the total six-year plan is $50.9 million total on all the capital projects. $19.6 million is from the general fund. Fiscal year 18-19, the total capital project is $17.6 million, of which $8.7 million comes from the general fund. Fiscal year 18-19, the operating funds are $1.67 million from the general fund. Some of the projects that that are coming from this fund is pavement management, $350,000, DPW equipment, $140,000, and the community center, $125,000. Is that the, Council President, is that the one you wanted to address?
Yeah, so I'm just looking at 12 and 14, and I just want to make sure I bring it up at the appropriate time. The capital project that we were talking about on Clark Road, should I bring it up on 12 or should I bring it up on 14? Both?
Both.
Okay, so I'd like to bring that up. When are you complete, you're done?
Yes,
that's
that's just a synopsis of what this budget was.
All right, that's good, and the council has that in front of them, and so I just wanted to talk about Clark Road because it came up the last time, the rec center. It was $105,000 in the capital budget. I think Patrick said it was 2 pennies on the project. So I just wanted to know if the council had any appetite. I know Matt had talked about it last time, a compromise of a plan of $25,000 over a period of years, or if people wanted to just put that capital project back in. Again, Clark Road and that recreational center has such opportunity for this town, whether you're a youth or you're a senior, and so I never want to sell it. I want to rebuild and renovate. And in front of you, I think you all have what that 105,000 would be, you know, the windows and upper and lower, the double doors, all the things that they've been looking at Clark Road. The women's room, the men's room, the restrooms. It's just such a great piece of property for the town. So I say rebuild it and people will come. So I don't know what your pleasure is. I know it was taken out. I'd plead with the council to restore that in the Capitol.
So, well, two things. One is, I think the original recommendation came from Steve, right? So this is a Parks and Rec project. This is a capital asset that we own in town. I'm a big fan of, if we're going to own something, then you need to make sure it's maintained properly. I think Steve does a tremendous job with the beach facilities. You can drive by there now. It's going to be, I guess, opening weekend. It looks like, you know, the grand opening is happening, right? It's a significant piece of property. Clark Farm is the same. And I just don't understand, if we're going to own something and let it fall apart, then why do we own it? So I'm 100% in favor of restoring it. So.
Patrick?
Well, it's more a technical question because the operating budget, I've always interpreted operating budget as like number 12 and number 14 is capital. But so I thought that we would have this conversation under 14.
She said both. So.
What am I?
Yeah, that's what I wasn't.
But we've
sure.
never. I don't think since I've been on, we've actually had an amendment on the first reading. So.
What comes into play is the transfer from the general fund to the capital projects fund, and that's a line item within your operating budget.
So that transfer, right, and so then, right, the capital budget then stands alone, number 14, without operating, because that has whatever we're putting forth, fire truck, or any capital item, anything that's over several years. The cabana is several years ago. But because we have that transfer over, we've got to amend 12.
Right, because that's the operating money needed for this year's budget for capital items.
Got it. So, yeah, it brings up a bigger conversation, I think, for me. So Clark Road, we talked about, and the community center were two places that we wanted to make some changes to and make some fixes. We talked about that in the capital budget over the workshops, everyone might remember. So as I was going through the budget since the workshops, I've been, you know, kind of this a little different budget than ones that I've dealt with before, because the driver of this budget is not so much what happens this year. It's the library. It's the purchase of the library building at Belmont. That drives this year is not a big dollar amount in the budget, but over the next 20 years. There is an average of $420,000 over 2 decades that we're basically saying, in our plan, in our budget, this is included. So, so as I'm thinking about that, voting for this budget, I have to vote for that long-term plan. And as time has gone on and we've learned more and more about this project and we've gone through our negotiations, I have concerns. First of all, we have 3 buildings. We have the existing library, we've got the community center, we've got Clark Road. We can look at those, we can look at the purposes each of those buildings has. What are the things that they need? The parking issue that's come up so many times about events at the library is event-driven. So if movie nights and event nights and speaker nights, those are a problem, they can be moved to the community center. And we can upgrade the community center. We put money in the budget. We could put more into the budget to do that. And I just don't think we've had this conversation. We've kind of had blinders on in pushing this Belmont project, this IGA project at the IGA building. And so I feel it's a fiscal plan for the town. I'm not going to be able to support that 20-year outlay. Again, that's for the next 20 years, every year, $420,000. That's almost 1% tax increase year after year. Things like a 3rd school resource officer, that could be done in lieu of that. Things like the Clark Road renovations, things like the fixing up the community center. So many other things that we could do. And I think we've lost track of the library needs to be a library, right? Not an event center, not a community center. And so I think it's good that we're bringing up the Clark Road conversation. But in the end, I just, I think we've got to talk about, the kind of the silent majority out there that doesn't come all the time. There's a huge middle ground here that we can look at to do a more modest proposal with the library and not have this borrowing over 20 years. And so I'm not going to be able to support item number 12, the budget this year, because of that.
Thank you, Matt. Patrick, do you have anything to say about item 12?
Well, I thought this was about Clark Road and not the library. I think that's a whole totally
Well,
separate
it's about
issue.
everything because it's the budget, right? So it's
Yeah,
everything.
I know that.
But I did bring
there's
up
no
Clark.
mention here
Yeah.
of the library. Am I correct?
Yes,
Okay, the library is a whole separate issue. It's
Well,
definitely a budget
yeah,
issue,
yeah.
but it's not
It's in the budget.
in this number
Yes,
12.
it is, Patrick. It's in the budget that's what we're voting on. It is in the budget. It's a plan for the
There's a
for the
line item
community.
that says library.
Yeah, debt service, we have a line item this year of approximately $115,000, and then over the next 20 years, debt service, next year is in the $500,000 range.
But if
Laura
we-
provided us these numbers.
But if we don't approve, right now, we have a P&S agreement with Gilbane. If we don't move forward with that contract, all this dies on the vine, correct? Okay. All right, so let's put the library aside.
No, they're tied together, though. A plan is a budget for the future. You can't separate them when it's the major driver of
Well,
the
listen,
next 20 years.
I'm with you on Clark Road, okay? I think that Clark Road facility needs to be looked at. When they moved up there, they had 100 kids, Narragansett kids. Now they got 50 or 60, which a number of them are from South Kingston. So to me, we're providing services for other communities and, we just got too many buildings, too many things going on. I'm like thinking we could consolidate down on the pier. We got the bike path coming in. That whole area right there seems to be make financial sense. So as far as Clark Road, I went down there. The windows in question that need addressing would probably cost $10,000. So I'd be willing to give $10,000 to fix the windows that are leaking on the cupola there, and that should, keep the unit from deteriorating. So
We have a list of items for 105. You had said 25, now you're saying 10. Is there a compromise?
I've never said 25.
No, Matt did.
No.
Matt did at last meeting. So I'm just trying to figure out if there's any desire to do some renovations down there. I take the 10, I take the 25. Can we compromise?
Yeah, if you want to go 25, I can agree with 25.
Would you be willing to put 25,000 in the capital project?
And on item 14, I'd put the money into Clark Road. My vote's going to be that I think we shouldn't go down the path on the 20-year debt service.
Right, so you'll talk about it on item 14?
I'll talk 14.
Okay, so I'll push on it on.
That's okay.
That's the next meeting.
Okay, any other discussion on motion 12 from the public? Stanley, did you already speak on this?
No,
Yeah.
no, he hasn't.
Yeah, you already spoke on 12, sorry. Anybody else wishing to speak? Catherine?
So I don't understand, why is this paper here?
Catherine Celebrato, 48 Earls Court. Don't we have $250,000 in the kitty budget that we were going to use for an AC system? We decided not to do it. That money can't be taken out and used for Clark Road?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Don't we have what?
The kitty bungalow, they have $250,000 in their budget to put an AC system, which they're not going to do.
Yeah, there's a motion tonight to get the elevator, so they said no to the HV, so that now there's a item on here for the elevator. So there's a whole process. You can't just take it from there and...
Well, every time I read this, it says the money was swept into the account, so I'm figuring you can sweep it out
Yeah,
again.
so it doesn't work that way, really. Thanks. Anybody else wishing to speak? Nancy?
So I want to go to what Pat, Nancy,
you have to say your name
Nancy
and your-
DiNuccio, 8 Vanderbilt.
Thank you.
Narragansett. I wanted to go what Patrick just said about the fact that we're now down to only about 50 or 60 kids at Clark Road. And I think one of the reasons we're down to 50 or 60 kids is because the facility is not adequate. It's not appealing. And I think by putting a little money into it, you're going to reap the benefits by more people, not just the camp kids, being able to use that facility. I think it's a wise investment. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Nancy. Anybody else? Jesse.
Jesse Pugh, 20 South Trail, Narragansett. Yeah, I'd like to just second what Nancy said. You can't really expect people to, you can't expect to gain more attraction to a facility that you're neglecting. So it's kind of like you're kind of putting the cart before the horse in that respect. You really need to invest in a property in order to attract people to it. The other thing that we haven't really discussed is that it's not just a summer camp. It is now, but if you go there, you'll see that it's completely deserted 3 seasons out of 4. But it's a building on a field that could be used for anything. So you're not using it in the summer. Why don't you use it for events in the winter? It could be rented out for weddings. It could be used for 1-week camps, specialty camps. You really just need to put the money in if you're going to see what the potential is for that land. But letting it fall apart is more wasteful, than anything else I can think of. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak on the budget? Okay, seeing no other hands, all those in favor of motion 12? Aye.
Aye.
No.
Okay, that's the whole budget, Patrick, on 12.
Yeah, I'm done. No. You got your 3 votes.
No.
No,
Oh, no budget. Bingo.
so 2-2 motion fails, so I need to take a break on that. Let's just take a 5-minute break. Okay, so the budget fails. We're gonna take a 5-minute break.
That's a great idea.
Okay, so that is wild.
Taking a 5-minute break?
Yeah, because Did you want? Didn't want to
I'm
vote?
just disgusted. What is this? What is this all of a sudden? Try to slip that in.
What is what? This is from the town hall. I don't know what that's about.
I brought it up at the work session, Susan. I did. I mean, And I see you weren't there Thursday night, right? So you pointed about the work session. So I kind of, so yeah, I get it. I have to go through it. If you live in a condo,
So come back in 2 weeks.
I mean, I told you.
Yeah, it's fine.
But he's got to say what it is. He's got to make a decision.
Yeah. Yeah, that was, okay. No, no. Fine, all right. Okay, 5-minute break is over. Just want to recap on the budget, number 12. It was a 2-2 motion, failed, so we are going to come back in 2 weeks on that June 4th meeting and present another budget. So moving on to 13. Number 13, a motion to introduce, read, pass, and accept as a resolution amending the official list of parking restrictions and regulations in the town of Narragansett in accordance with Narragansett Code of Ordinances, Boston Neck Road, Sprague Bridge area.
So move.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
This is good. This is.
Did you want to say anything about that? Jim, sorry. We're ready to vote on that, so I know you've been working hard on that.
This project's about 18 months overdue. This was the first task I was assigned to by then Councilwoman Bonanno. And what this is, a comprehensive plan on how to reduce the traffic and the crowding over in the Sprague Bridge parking areas in the Narrow River. So we went to DOT, we kept going back and forth in all directions trying to get this done, and finally it's coming to fruition now. So basically what we're doing is through Rhode Island DOT, we have permission to take control of the south lot, south side of Sprague Bridge, the north side past the overlook, and we're going to put decorative boulders and tailor it on the model like Black Point with some real fence posts and decorative boulders. And also you'll see on the agenda tonight some restrictive parking on Boston Neck Road as well, and we're doing this because of public safety. Every director I've brought out there and every person from DOT that I've brought out there has noticed that the chance of having a serious motor vehicle accident at the height of these days on the beach is tremendous. You might have 200 vehicles there parked in all directions with kids running in the middle, crossing the road, and everyone trying to get to the beach. So we're going to restrict some access to this area.
Yeah, so I'm thrilled about that. That has expanded all the way up Boston Neck from Sprague Bridge up, and it just keeps, climbing up. So that's great. Will there be signs? Will they put
Yes,
no parking on that side?
Yes, we had a meeting today with engineering. Jeff Cesarini's done a tremendous amount of work on this. And Mike DeCicco, police chief, and everyone involved. And there will be signs, 2-hour parking, which is consistent with the rest of town. And if you park on the grass, it will be a tow zone.
And will the site look very similar to Scarborough, like near Christian Brothers, where they have one of those little areas where you pull in and park, and they're all?
That's correct. We went up there and looked at that, and we're modeling this area. It'll be very nice looking, and we should have it ready for the height of the beach season.
Sounds great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0, motion passes. Number 14. I'm going to ask, is there somebody that will pull that or table that until the next budget?
Move to table item 14.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
4-0, motion passes. 15, a motion to adopt a resolution amending the official list of parking restrictions and regulations in the town of Narragansett in accordance with the Narragansett Code of Ordinances, Star Drive, Cove Road, Castle Road, and Star Drive West.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just a quick question, Chief. So this is now both sides of Star Drive West, right, will be no parking? Okay.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion 16, a motion to adopt the operations and maintenance plan for the Scarborough wastewater treatment facility flood proofing project.
So moved.
Second.
Jeff, you want to? Anybody have any questions? Anybody from the public? I think they're good. All those in favor?
Aye.
4-0, motion passes. Number 17, a motion to adopt amendments to the sewer policy relative to the general language updates and capacity allocations. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Jeff, can you come on up, because this is sewer policy, and I know that you've worked hard, we've worked hard together on this, and I just want you to walk through that policy change, or the policy changes.
Sure. The original policy was written back in 1987. It's been amended a few times over the years by vote of the town council as times and situations and conditions have changed. This particular set of amendments came about through a number of discussions between yourself and Councilmember Murray and myself at various sewer policy committee meetings. And basically, it boils down to a couple of basic things. We had always used an informal what we call the 80% capacity rule, where we would not commit more than 80% of our capacity at either of the treatment plants in town. And that was an informal rule. It was never memorialized in the policy. After looking at the numbers, after looking at the risk that we might take in bumping that up, through the discussions we had at sewer policy, the decision was made to change that from 80 to 85%. It's still an acceptable risk, in my opinion. The 85% still gives us some wiggle room because of the situation at the regional plant with our regional partners still using far less than their committed capacity. And at the Scarborough plant, where since the drop-off in fish processing over the years, we've actually seen our flow levels come down rather than go up. So the 85% piece works for us. What it does in an equivalent basis, it would open up approximately 257 homes worth of capacity. The other sewer policy provisions still apply, so it's not like neighborhood specific or lot specific, but it does give us a little bit more flexibility in terms of allocating capacity. And we memorialize that in the sewer policy for the first time. So it's not just me saying it's 80% at the staff level, it's now a piece of the policy. So that was the first major change. The second major change was to increase the maximum length for a sewer extension from 350 to 500 feet. The 350-foot piece was picked back in 1987 when the intent of the policy was to allow to sewer small gap areas only, little ends of streets, cul-de-sacs, little dead ends, things like that. The 500 makes sense. A run between manholes can be 500 feet. We can clean 500 feet with our sewer equipment. It just procedurally made some sense. And then the last major component of this set of changes is the fact that we've now memorialized the criteria that the Sewer Policy Committee uses in evaluating waivers. Again, that was something that was at the staff level. It was in memorandum back and forth between us, but it was never officially part of the policy. And then finally, we did a number of housekeeping things just to reflect the fact that certain conditions have changed, again, in the Port of Galilee and things like that, with improvements that have been made at both treatment plants. So that's pretty much where we are. Again, it's not lot specific or neighborhood specific. There's still a policy in place. There's still a procedure in place for waivers, but this will give the committee and then ultimately the council a little bit more wiggle room, if you will, for approving waivers.
So I want to thank you because, I think you're a true expert in that area, and it's been a pleasure for Patrick and I think, working with you and on that committee. And I know we met a couple of times, and we kind of tweaked the language and everything, and so I was happy with giving the capacity from 80 to 85 so that we had 257 homes that had ability. Patrick's idea to have them a little bit, those leftovers that never got tied in, to be able to tie in. So I think updating it hadn't been looked at in a long time, and with your guidance and your help, I think we got it to at least the 21st century kind of language, and so I feel good about that, and we didn't rush to that. I mean, we had some deep conversations about what would work, so I appreciate all your extra work on that.
There's been one question that has come up, and I'll address it because it's something that may get asked of you. With denials that we've made within the last year or two, are we going to try to reach out to those people? I wasn't going to do that specifically, and I'll tell you why, for a couple of reasons. One, the letter that we send when we deny closes with the statement, please contact us periodically to see if there have been any changes. The people that are serious about applying for waivers do that. They call us. Have there been any changes? Has my situation changed? Can you relook at it? Can you give me a new assessment as to whether or not I can connect or not? So those people that are serious about it are on top of it. And again, because this is not lot specific or neighborhood specific, there will still be some denials. So, for anyone watching tonight and for the press that picks it up, if we have denied anybody within the last couple of years, I'm pretty sure we'll hear from them quickly after tonight. And that's fine. We're ready to look at them all again.
Just a quick question. How many homes, percentage, I don't need exact numbers, is it 80% of the homes are connected or 80%?
Townwide?
Yeah.
We have a little over 7,000 sewer customers, and
So
I think
that's
we have
9,000 plus
what about
homes.
a little bit
okay.
over 9,000 developed lots. The major blocks left, Mike, are Great Island, Harbor Island, and some areas of Bonnet out by the point, and then there's isolated spots throughout town, but those are the three major areas left.
So thank you for that. Any questions from the council?
I just want to state that, being on the sewer committee, we've denied people who are, because of the antiquated policy, who are just feet away. And we're connecting a lot of, the sewer would end here on this street, and around the corner, it ends over here. So we'd be connecting that. We have plenty of capacity. Even though we're at 85%, the capacity of that plant is what? 55, maybe 57%?
Yes.
With an additional 257 homes. So we're a long road away from overwhelming that facility. Because South Kingston and URI, they're not sewer hungry. The only one that's sewer hungry in that facility is the town of Narragansett. Appreciate the support. Thank you.
And that's why I feel comfortable at the 85% level. You know me by now that I'm ultra conservative when it comes to matters of sewers.
Yeah, I'm amazed you even agreed to it. No.
But,
See, the problem with South Kingston, you're right, they'd have to run all this infrastructure to utilize their capacity.
Well, the main infrastructure is there from both the campus and from the community, but they just don't have the same impetus that we do. URI in particular, back when the sewer policy was originally written in the 1980s, there was some thought that there would be a lot more student housing on campus, a lot more dorms.
Right.
And that never materialized. They chose to build science buildings and research buildings and other academic buildings rather than build student housing. So that was a lot of it if you go back and look at the history of it.
But South Kingston would have to run a lot of linear footage of sewer lines.
To service certain neighborhoods, sure.
Yeah. So,
Thank you, Jeff. Anybody wishing to speak from the public? Seeing no one. All those in favor?
Can I, so I haven't served on the sewer policy committee ever. You guys are more intimate with it than I am. I'm just concerned about opening up 257 lots. I'd like to know which ones they are. I mean, if there's a way for, if there can be a work session to discuss it. I don't know if they're vacant. It's just a lot. This is a major change for the town.
I think.
So if you want me to go offline and meet with Jeff on it, I didn't know this was going to be on until the packet came out. This had been it was on an agenda about a month and a half ago. But just my concern is, unless there's somebody who's really dying to get connected, I think we don't have to change the policy tonight. And I'm concerned about the people who say about overdevelopment and lots that could be wet and those lots that could, wetlands, to loosen the restrictions and go to 85. It's just.
Well,
Yeah, again, though, Matt, it's not lot-specific or neighborhood-specific.
But then why do we say we must know what the 257 are?
I'm sorry?
It's just volume. It's just volume.
It's a volumetric calculation only. It's the equivalent of 257 homes. It could be one factory that uses 257 homes worth of water consumption. Obviously, that's not going to happen, but again, it's a volumetric calculation rather than neighborhood by neighborhood or lot by lot. What we're finding, to your concern about overdevelopment, and certainly it's a legitimate concern, is that we've denied people sewer connections and they go build anyway.
Yeah,
they manage to find their way through the DEM process and secure a building permit and a permit for an on-site wastewater treatment system, and sure enough, a year later, the house goes up anyway.
Yeah, and then they're going to use a septic, Matt. And a lot of the denials have been right in Bonnet. A lot of people in Bonnet, they have these lots, they're buildable, but they're just too far away from the sewer policy. And this is environmentally friendly. I'd rather have a sewer line with somebody kicking in a yearly fee than,
Logic tells us that.
I'd be thrilled. A third to 40% of Bonnet is not on sewers, and there's a lot of issues around that. But it's the whole town that I'm concerned about, and I know about the development piece. That's my worry. And
well, if the lot is wet, they can't build on it, whether they have sewers or not.
well, that's not always true. You know that.
Well,
there's wet lots that have been built on.
Logic tells us that the requests are still going to come from people that are in very close proximity to existing sewers, because we're still limiting an extension to 500 feet. And quite frankly, the cost for a homeowner to extend a sewer more than that is cost prohibitive. And we've seen sewer extensions that cost tens of thousands of dollars, and at some point someone says, well, I'm not going to do that, I'll just go put an OWTS in instead.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other questions on it? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those not in favor?
No.
3-1, motion passes.
It helps your base.
And Jeff, maybe you could meet offline with Matt just to reassure him about those 257 homes that he's concerned about.
Right. Thank you for clarifying that. I shouldn't talk because we're done the motion.
Yeah, but it's okay. Okay, moving on. 19, a motion to authorize, 18, a motion to adopt the loan program and associated policies for the use of wastewater enterprise fund monies for the lateral connections within Edgewater neighborhood. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, just a reminder, this is those 8 homes out of the 32, 24. We have the 8 left over. Jeff, can you just come up, because I know people received the letter, and I just want to clarify. We said we would pay for the residents and they'd pay us back, and we did a loan program.
Right, and I've taken the liberty of just jotting down a couple of the frequently asked questions that we've received since this has come out.
You can get them out there for the public.
Yeah, as you recall, at the last meeting, we came before you with a proposal to authorize the use of wastewater fund monies to help out people in Edgewater, because for no reason of their own, we can no longer maintain the low-pressure system that's there. I think all of you have the background on that. What we were left with after the last meeting was that we told you we would come back with what we call the developed loan application or the developed loan procedures. And the terms and conditions of the proposed loan agreements were attached to your item. There were 12 items there. Jumping right into the questions, because I think it helps explain it. One question that we got today was the loan period of 4 years. Would the town entertain a longer period to pay back the loan? Quite frankly, that's your decision. I'm fine with it if you want to go longer than that. It's the maximum number of people that can apply are 8. We had set the maximum loan amount at $5,000, so the maximum outlay to the wastewater fund is $40,000. We have an extremely healthy fund balance. We're not charging interest anyway. So to me, whether we do this over 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, it doesn't really matter. It's whatever you feel comfortable doing. We've had at least one person say a longer period would be more acceptable or a little bit easier to handle.
Maybe we should do 4 years, and then if you need an extension, a couple years, something like that. Do the 4 years, and then if you need an extension?
I think what I'd rather do, because I'm not sure from a loan standpoint how that's going to appear on like a tax lien or something.
Yep.
I would rather have you pick a longer period because someone can always prepay it without any penalty. There's no interest anyway, so if you grant the loan for 6 years and they pay it off in 4, it gets recorded and comes off the lien anyway.
Yeah, so that is a good point, though. So how does it show up if they sell their property in the loan, during the loan
Well,
period?
then the bill would go, either they pay it at closing, or they could pay it at closing, or the bill passes on to the new buyer.
But it has
the
to
new
be,
owner.
so it'll be recorded.
What we recommended,
Okay, yeah, let's listen, see
yeah,
what he's...
what we recommended in here, and again, you can change this, is that the loan would constitute a lien on the real estate, but we also said that the loan would be due and payable upon any transfer of the real estate.
There you go. Yep.
Again, if you wish to tweak that, you can, but
Yeah, so are we comfortable with 6 years?
Yep.
I mean, does that seem,
I move to amend 6 years from 4.
are you comfortable with that?
You know my position on this.
Yeah.
I talked about it last time. It's 8 people. It would be if there's money in the wastewater enterprise fund. Because the pipe isn't working, you presented 2 options for us. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to this, but it's not through any fault of their own that they have to have this change. So I think I would take it from the wastewater enterprise fund. If it was 80, obviously I wouldn't, but it's 8.
So that was a
that's my
question
position.
that's a question I have, so, and I was going to ask you this just a second ago. So this is originally, this system was put in by the town charges a fee annually, so why are we
originally it was put in by a private developer.
But, so the neighborhood, the property owner, so what's different from Edgewater than any other neighborhood that they would have to be charged by the town to fix something that the town implemented?
8 of them remain on what's called the low-pressure pipe.
Right.
And they never moved over.
And but they did that by
We should have
choice?
moved them
But the
over.
32 were on, correct, Jay? The 32 were all on the
32
low-pressure
originally.
pipe, but then they moved to the higher gravity pipe. But now we have 8. That's why I said it's through no fault of their own. It could
Correct.
be any of the 8 of the 32
When
who that
when
happened to.
Edgewater was developed, Mike, there were no town sewers anywhere along the narrow river. And the developer of the Edgewater plat, a gentleman named Carlin Nash, came to the town, and this is 1985, I believe it was, and proposed to put a low-pressure sewer system in, which is a small diameter pipe. Each home would have an individual grinder pump. Yeah, that was customary at the time. It was not uncommon. Star Drive is the same way. There are a few other neighborhoods in town with low-pressure systems. And 32 lots were connected that way with grinder pumps and low-pressure systems. And then if you allow me to segue into one of the other questions too, it'll help explain it. All of those 32 people paid a sewer lot development fee at that time. And it was either $1,000, which was the fee in 1985, or it was $3,500, which was the fee a few years later. So those fees were retired after 4 years, and that got taken off the books. So one of the questions that I was asked was, if I purchased the property recently, how come this didn't show up? Well, the sewer lot development fee, the original sewer lot development fee would have been paid off in the early 90s. So it wouldn't show up anywhere as a lien anymore. It wouldn't show up on a tax closing certificate. So you have that as the background. And then in 1992, the town embarked on a phase of the North End Sewer Project that sewered the Edgewater plat as well. By this point, there were more than 32 homes in Edgewater. Only 32 were hooked up to sewers. So the town put a gravity system in that covered the entire neighborhood. And in 1992, the town council adopted a policy that said, for those originally 32, you can convert over to gravity sewer if you wish, or you can stay on your grinder pump system for the time being. When you do convert, any lot development fee that you paid would be credited against what the North End Sewer Policy Assessment Program was. So that set the framework for the sewer policy, or the sewer lot development fee payment piece of it. So yes, everybody did pay a lot development fee back in the 80s or 90s, but they have to pay the difference between that and what the sewer assessment that everybody in the North End paid was. So that's that fundamental difference. Now, that's something that sits out there in addition to the physical cost of converting from a low pressure to a gravity. And that's one of the reasons why we decided to offer the loan. Now, if someone wants to take out the loan and use that to pay off the balance between the lot development fee and the assessment, they can do that. That's fine. It's actually a smart way to do it because the loan is interest-free and the sewer lot development fee is not.
So the bottom line is those original 32 paid something to connect to the new system.
Yep, they all paid a lot development fee, and
Yep.
they all paid the physical price
Yep.
of connecting from their house to the
So
street.
these leftover 8 have not yet converted, so therefore they have not yet paid. Therefore, we're offering them some
Correct.
loan program.
And the timing of it, too, is why we're offering it, Mike, is that with only 8 homes left on it, we can't maintain that system in a functional state any longer. So we really need to get the 8 converted over to gravity. So with that thought in mind, we were hoping to offer some type of financial incentive.
Mike, we said at the last meeting, we'd help them by doing this loan program, so, because we feel like we should finish those 8.
I understand where Matt was going with that, and I and I agreed, but I didn't realize the original 32 had already paid, kind of going from one to another. So now everybody's paying, right?
That's right. We didn't want to say, well, they don't have to
Fair.
pay anything because the other people paid too. And we thought they might come back and say, how come you're paying for them? So they all paid, and this would be just finishing up those 8.
Yeah, I get it.
So two other questions that have came up would be, when would we start this program, and when would the first loan payment be available? Obviously, we're trying to accelerate the program to get everybody connected. We would make the loan payment to everybody in June. So they would have the money in June so that they could hire a contractor, do the conversion, help pay their first installment of the lot development fee. But we're not going to send out the first loan repayment bill until November. So there's a little bit of a grace period there to give people a chance to try and catch up.
you want them-
by
sorry,
again,
Dick.
by extending it over 6 years now rather than 4 years, it softens it a little bit as well.
Because you want them connected by June. You want them fixed
Yeah.
up.
Yeah,
So
we
we'll
really-
do that, and then their payment will be in November.
Correct.
Okay.
And then the last question that we've heard from a few people was, I bought the property recently, and why didn't any of this show up at closing? And I answered part of it before. When the original lot development fees were paid, say in 1985, 86, 87, they were all 4-year payments. So those were all retired. If you bought a property in Edgewater last year, that would not show up anywhere. It's no longer a lien. It's been long since retired. It doesn't show up on the tax closing certificate. The 1992 policy, though, that the town council adopted, that noted that people would have to pay the difference between the lot development fee and the north end sewer assessment, that was duly adopted and recorded in 1992. But it was not lot specific. It referred to 32 lots within Edgewater. So in defense of a title examiner, unless you really got into the weeds and said, I'm looking at this lot, I wonder if it's one of those 32, you wouldn't find it. And that is why it's taken some new homeowners by surprise.
Thanks. Any questions from the council? Are we satisfied to amend it to 6 years? Are you guys?
I'm very much satisfied, yeah.
All right, so make that amendment,
Yep.
somebody, if you're,
Now move that motion.
okay.
Discussion.
Discussion before we make the amendment? No, we'll discuss it more before we do the amendment. Just state your name and your address.
My name is Maura Katoya. I live at 57 Edgewater Road. I'm one of the 8 homes that has not switched over to the gravity line. I purchased my home 2 years ago. Upon the purchase of my home, it was not disclosed to me in 1992 assessment to pay back the project costs of $6,855.36. We weren't aware of that. Mind you, in 1992, I was 8 years old, so of course I wouldn't know those prices or costs. I appreciate the town council and the town engineer have set up the 0% interest loan, but when you break down the finances, annually for the next 3 years, the town is asking that I return the cost of the loan and pay back a sewer lot development fee with a 12% interest rate, which essentially is tripling what I have paid in taxes for the last 2 years. We bought our home in Narragansett for many reasons. The taxes and the cost of living was among them. With respect to the homeowners who have paid these costs or will by July 1st of 2018, they've had 26 years to make these large financial decisions. I know my family and I are not the only households that have changed hands in this neighborhood. And we will not have 26 years to make these decisions. We will have 49 days. Please consider revising any 1992 costs for these projects or extending deadlines, as this is unrealistic for myself and many of the people who are living in taking such short notice for this. Thank you, I appreciate your time. This is really unexpected for us and really stressful, so thank you.
Thank you, Maura. Okay, hearing, anybody else wishing to speak? So, hearing Maura and what we just talked about, is there a desire to amend the motion for 6 years and the payments won't start until November? I hope that's satisfactory. What do you guys think?
Sure.
Yeah, no, I'm in support of 6
So
years.
longer amount of time to pay, so it will be corrected in June, but they'll have plenty of time to prepare. And if they need more than the 6 years, at that time, maybe, we could
Why don't
have.
We have a wastewater enterprise fund. It has the money. It's 8 houses. This is where government really can show that it's, that it's going to help its residents. When I said it 2 weeks ago, it's 8, and I get the other 24, but it's a unique situation. The 24, it's not as all 32 were in it together at the beginning with a fee, and Jeff presented both options to us when he came forward. I mean, it was, and now he's going to be managing a loan program for 8 people. I mean, so staff work on, and now it's once every 6 years. I mean, it's not their fault. This is a unique situation, one of a kind. We have a great wastewater enterprise fund. It's one of the better ones in the state. We talk about it in budget. This is how we can help. This is.
Yeah, I mean, I could go for the 6 years. I could go,
Yeah.
for the enterprise fund too. I mean, I too want to help the residents. So what do you guys think? I mean, it's a tough
Jeff,
one.
we're putting a new line in, correct? We're putting a whole new line in? Sewer line?
For Edgewater? No, it's there. The gravity line is there.
Right, the gravity line's there, they're just hooking into it.
They're connecting to it.
Right.
We put gravity sewers there in 1992.
Right, okay. So, to me, it's, I mean, we're setting a bad precedent not, providing financing. I mean, why don't we defer the first payment to January 1st? We'll go 6 years and defer the first payment to January 1st. That will give.
The only reason we staggered it is because the sewer lot development fee payments go out in January as well.
Right.
And
okay. So
I'm
you gotta-
not sure if it's going to
Right,
confuse the
right.
matter or if it's just, if it doesn't help.
How much is in that fund?
I'm sorry?
How much is in that fund, do you know?
How much is in the wastewater enterprise fund?
And the fund balance, like
Balance,
what
yeah.
to
Fund
absorb
balance
this financial blow.
It's close to $6 million.
And we're 8 times what? 35? Is it what is
Well,
it?
we offered to loan up to $5,000. So we're looking at a maximum outlay of $40,000 as part of the loan program.
So no, I understand exactly Matt's sentiment. So what I'm struggling with, though, and it's not a big, I'm not having a big struggle, but I do have an issue. I know it's no fault of their own, but I have an issue with the other 32 homes that have already paid. So I completely understand, that there might be hardship. I'm not suggesting that I don't sympathize with that. But what I do have a problem with 32 homes that have already actually written that check, right? So I don't know if you want to reduce the fee or make it a 10-year note or give them, a rebate. All I know is that I think it needs to be equitable in the neighborhood. Just because there's 8 homes and because the low pressure system failed, it's, they still didn't connect to the gravity system. So I just
That is the issue, Mike. You have 24 homes that have paid and you have 8 that have not yet. And it's,
so if
what's the balance of equity between?
if there was let me just make this clear. So if there were an empty lot in Edgewater and I were building a house,
Yep.
then I'd have to pay the total fee to connect to the sewer system.
Correct.
So
All right, let's make it 10 years. Let's come for compromise here. Yeah. Thank you. Well, we have to finish it, but we want to get it right. Sue Bush. I mean, come on up. Yeah, we gotta.
I feel your pain.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying
It's a
to
conundrum.
get
I
a middle
understand the
here.
pain. But I'm wondering where the 12% interest rate comes from. Is there any way this could be a 0% interest rate? Or I don't know if there's regulations about that.
The 12% interest on the sewer lot development fee is actual statutory.
So we can't get away from that. Thanks.
I don't like it either, but
What are they gonna give the other 32 a rebate?
All right, so we have a motion in front of us. I don't know if there's an amendment that wants to come up. Anybody?
What's that?
Do you want to amend it?
I mean, I would amend it to my position. I mean, which is that it would come from the wastewater enterprise fund. I move to amend it that the money for these 8 comes from the wastewater enterprise fund, and there's,
Can you make an amendment on that amendment?
that's my amendment. Well, no one, someone has to second it. If no one wants to, that's fine.
Someone has to second
You don't
it.
have to, no, feel free.
The problem is, the people who paid,
There's
do
no
we give them a
second.
rebate? Then we should be giving those people who paid a
Okay.
rebate. Why don't we do this? Instead of 40, let's cut it in half to 20. There's a compromise. We'll give them 6 years to pay 20,000 divided by 8. That make sense? Can we do that? There's 40.
Just give them 10 years.
Instead of 5,000. What's the total cost of the project?
Well, we estimated that it would cost each homeowner about $5,000 to
$5,000.
connect.
Okay. So
That's
let's-
to do the physical conversion
Right,
from a low
okay.
pressure to
Well,
gravity.
let's put
It
'em
may
on
be a
the
little
hook.
more, maybe a little less, but that's an estimate that we had based on
Right.
some conversations with local contractors.
Right. Okay, so they kind of got lost in the neighborhood here. So let's just, 2,500, and we'll just cut that in half, and we'll eat 25. The homeowner will have chance to pay 2,500 back over 6 years.
So you're suggesting
Yeah.
an outright payment of $2,500 and a loan of $2,500?
Yes, we'll eat the 2,500.
The
on
first
one side.
2,500?
Yeah, so we'll cut the
Yeah, but
bill
they're not
in
going to
half.
have to come up with the 2,500.
No.
Yeah, okay. I think that's
No,
a
let's
good
be,
amendment.
let's be clear, though, Jeff, so you understand what Patrick just said.
Yeah, I
He
wanna make sure I
said,
understand,
we,
too.
the town, pay 2,500.
Right.
And the homeowner pays 2,500.
Or the balance.
Or the balance, over
A period of
5
time.
years or 6 years at 0%. So the program has gone from 5,000 over 6 years at 0% to 2,500.
Okay, so everybody's happy.
Yeah.
Over
that's-
6 years at 0%, and the net is about 35. I just did a little thing.
And
It's
let's hope
35
everybody
bucks
in
a
the
month.
neighborhood isn't going to ask for a rebate.
So can you repeat the
So the amendment, so
25?
I move to amend the current motion that the town of Narragansett covers $2,500 of the cost of connecting these 8 homes to the gravity system in Edgewater, comma, and the homeowner can pay, has the option to pay $2,500 over 6 years at 0%.
I'll second that motion. That's perfect.
I think one fact, though, that's important is, Jeff, the pipe that you're fixing, the low-intensity pipe, as opposed to the gravity pipe, we're spending money fixing that, right? So the town as a whole has to go in. If it wasn't in disrepair, that wouldn't be happening, and the 8 could stay happily on that, as they have for all these years.
That's correct.
That's the issue, right? So we're spending money to fix it. So instead of doing that, right, that's why I'm taking the position I'm taking, that we could just have the 8 taken from the wastewater enterprise fund, because if it wasn't in disrepair, we'd be fine.
And that's the mitigating circumstance, Matt, is that we paid over $20,000 this spring in repairs to that line alone.
So we have an amendment on the floor. All those in favor of the amendment? Aye.
No.
3-1, motion passes. Thank you. Jeff, thanks for helping us, and thanks for that amendment, because it was... Thank you. Okay, thank you. Moving on. We're on number 19. A motion to authorize the town manager to sign the fence license agreement with GP Peer Realtor LLC, allowing for the installation of fencing along the public safety building property perimeter, subject to approval of the town solicitor. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion from the public. Thanks for that hard work, because it was kind of a tough one.
I think Lori wants to say something.
Yeah, she's coming up.
Lori Kelly, Wildfield Farm. I have a question on this because I was unaware that this was impacting the library property. It looks like the fence goes up to the corner of the library on the attachments packet. We have a fire escape there, which is within 20 feet of that proposed fence that looks like it doesn't have a gate or anything. And I have to say again, because we are not ADA compliant, if we put a ramp to allow wheelchair people to evacuate the library, this will be going right up into the proposed fence, of which, again, we were not notified about any of this. So
So this
Just
is
wanna
put on
address
by Jeff and Sean. Jeff, can I call you back up?
I can't hear you. I don't know.
Because they looked at the fencing agreement.
Gilbane wants it.
So the town council authorizes the fencing agreement. Thanks, Jeff. Can you just, in that agreement, can you
Yeah,
just?
this project has been in the works for a number of years between the town and Gilbane. As part of the accreditation process and just as part of good practice and principle, we would like to have some semblance of security and security fencing behind the public safety building. The easement shows going to the edge of the property line and essentially wrapping into the library. The fence does not have to do that. The fence can return to the corner of the public safety building and therefore only fence in the public safety building lot. It will not have any impact on the library proper.
So so thank you. So that diagram where it ends at the edge of the public safety building, it can,
Right.
so it looks like it's closer to the comfort station. It can go back towards the public safety
Right,
building.
we'll just turn it
Yeah.
physically
just
back
turn
into the public safety. At that point, we're on our own property and there's no issue of an easement anyway.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Any other comments?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
4-0, motion passes. Number 20, a motion to approve the filling of the municipal clerk position in the municipal court office. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any discussion from the public? All those in favor of filling this position that presently exists, it's just filling it. It's an open position at this point. All those in favor?
Aye.
4-0, motion passes. 21, a motion to approve a hiring of one prosecution clerk at the Narragansett Police Department. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Public? Oh,
Aye.
Aye. 4-0, motion passes. Sorry. 22, a motion to approve hiring of one dispatcher at the Narragansett Police Department. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Chief, any discussion? No? Anybody? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
4-0, motion passes.
Three.
23.
One no. One no.
Who said no?
Mate.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was very soft, no.
Well, you didn't say anybody opposed.
I thought everybody was in favor of that. 3-1, motion passes. Patrick is a no on that. 23, a motion to award the bid for the building renovation, restoration, and reconstruction services to the lowest bidder, Abcor Restoration Company, Inc., at their quote bid prices and markup rates for a one-year period ending May 20th, 2019. And they were the lowest. Oh,
So moved.
second.
Second.
Discussion, and they were the lowest bid.
The only question I have is these are contracts that are in force, right? So these are not contracts that were not renewed or outdated or?
No.
This is a new bid.
No.
Oh, really?
And there were, you know, we heard loud and clear, there were two, you know, last year, there were two vendors that bid, and Abcor was the cheapest.
Well-
It was Martone and Abcor.
Got it.
Thank you. Any other discussion from the public? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
4-0, motion passes. 24, a motion to approve, ratify, and confirm the emergency repairs at DPW Highway Division payloader completed by Schmidt Equipment in the amount of $14,568.80. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion. Anybody from the public? Anybody from the council? All those in favor?
Aye.
4-0, motion passes. 25, a motion to approve the painting of the council chambers in the town hall to be completed by Martone Services Company, Inc., in the amount of $26,000 using the State of Rhode Island Master Price Agreement. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. This chamber has not been painted in 25 years, and just take a look around.
Pretty good to me.
Madam
25 years is a long time to...
Madam President, So I know it's a high number, it's kind of sticker shock to a lot of people, but this council chamber's in dire need of some renovation. We replaced the tiles. I had DPW come to see if they could do it. The staging is just, it's impossible. We do not have the personnel that could do it. But if you look around, you can see patches in the wall, and yeah, I mean, it's in need of a refreshing. So if we get another 25 years out of it, I think we'd be in good shape.
Anybody from the public? Stanley is ready to bring his paintbrush down. Come on up. He's ready to start.
Stanley, you can bid on it.
Go ahead.
We're not going to hire your painter.
Get him on a
State your name and address.
Stan Wojciechowski in Narragansett. Do we have to maintain this master price agreement? Can't we get out of this master price agreement? I think we could find somebody to do that half price. I know it's big and tall, but I don't see $26,000 for one room. I just don't see that. You know, for one room, I think I could find. I know I'll find somebody for $13,000. How's that? I'll find somebody for $13,000 to do this.
Mary can't do it, Stanley.
You know? Why do we have to stay with the pricing in this? What's the option on that?
That price list.
I don't want the state
Can you
pricing.
elaborate on the price
So,
list?
no, that's a valid question, and I asked that question. We could go out to a separate bid, or we could go off a list of vendors that have proven themselves. The one thing, Martone Painting in construction, he did our roof, I think it was $40,000, $50,000 under budget. And I have the utmost faith that that's probably the price we should be paying. Now, if the council wants me to go out to bid, we can do that. But
it's one room. It's $26,000. I know. I get sticker shock when a guy tells me he wants to paint a bedroom for $150.
Mary, you up to
Well,
it?
I want to hire that guy because I said to my house painted the rooms.
What do you think, Mary? Can you handle this?
I know. I can look for someone. I know I can't do it myself. I have to find somebody.
Stanley, it is oil-based paint too, just so you know.
Yeah, that's
It's
a little extra.
$1 a gallon more.
Yeah, but they got single coat paints now. Maybe we don't have to double coat it, even though it's oil. I don't know. It just. I'd like to get off this payment plan here somehow. Got to send a message out there. We got to start doing.
We won't paint it for another 25 years.
Well, I guess we.
The
guess
message we want to send, Stanley, is this room is important. This is democracy.
Oh, I
this is where we
understand.
work and listen to the people in our government. So
Yeah,
to
I'm
me, 26,000 hasn't been painted in 25 years. It's the home of the people. I say paint it for the money.
I'm saying, I say paint it, fine, but I'm saying I'd like to get 3 prices. I always want to get 3 prices on any job.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Anybody wishing to speak? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0, motion passes. 26, a motion to approve the modernization of an existing elevator at Kinney Bungalow to be completed by, help me out.
ThyssenKrupp.
ThyssenKrupp Elevator Corp. in the amount of $48,970. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
And just for discussion, this money is the money that is coming out of the Kinney Bungalow capital? Correct? Any questions? Any concerns from the public? All those in favor? Aye.
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 4-0, motion passes. Okay.
50 grand.
And the last motion here, let's see, a motion to receive and place on file the report of the surplus property sold on the online auction site govsdeals.com for the period of August 1st, 2016 to March 31st, 2018. 20 months revenue for the period totals of $25,210.21. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Anybody from the public? All those in favor? Aye.
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 4-0, motion passes. Need a motion to retire to executive session, Town Council at the end of the May 21st, 2018 Town Council meeting in accordance with Rhode Island General Laws 4246-4 and -4246-5 to discuss possible land acquisition or lease of real property for public purpose as in accordance with 4246-5 and to appoint Mark Davis as clerk pro tem. Roll call
So
vote.
move.
Oh,
Mike Moretti, yes?
Patrick Murray, aye.
Matt Mannix, aye.
Susan Cicilline Bonanno, aye. Thank you. That concludes. We're going to go into executive session to, we're going to adjourn from the public.